Welcome to the Pulse of East Providence with Mayor Bob DaSilva. Our administration prides itself in communicating with the public, utilizing all avenues available, including this show. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter that goes out once a week, sometimes twice a week, go to our website, eastprovinceri.gov. You can sign up. It's easy. Just scroll down to the bottom. Also, we've got multiple social media platforms out there. We try to keep you informed so you know all of the great things impacting the city of East Providence and some of the projects that are ongoing. Now, we bring in people from all walks of life, and today I'm very proud to have somebody who I consider a friend and someone who's had a real significant impact in the city of East Providence. Join me in welcoming my good friend, Bill Fazioli, who is now the Executive Director.
That's correct, yep.
Of the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
Right.
Bill, welcome to the show.
Well, great to be here. Yeah, right around the corner from my house. So.
Yes, it is. Now, Bill, we've had an opportunity to work together, but usually what I like to do with this show is so people know who you are. Tell us, we go way back. Tell us about Bill Fazioli, where you grew up, where you went to school, where you graduated from, so people can hear from you.
Sure, yeah. I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. I was born and raised there. Went to school at local Catholic schools in the area, and then ended up going to LaSalle Academy, and then eventually to Rhode Island College. So, my academic career was with the 1 square mile. All the institutions were off Mount Pleasant Avenue, one way or another, or Academy Avenue. So, very, very close-knit neighborhood. Mm-hmm. My grandmother lived behind me, so very similar story to a lot of people here in East Providence. So, cousins lived up the street. So, it was a great opportunity.
You ended up marrying a local girl from East
Providence?
Yes, I
did. I met a local girl at a friend's party, when I was at Rhode Island College, and we dated through college, and when I went to graduate school up in Albany, New York, came back, we got married, and started a family right here in East Providence in 1990.
Well, we benefited from you meeting your wife because she's a wonderful person, and now you're a resident here in the city, and you've been very impactful in your interactions with the city. So I'd like to start off with telling me and tell the public how you became the city manager and how that experience was for you.
Yeah, sure. So, at the time, the city had a longtime city manager. A lot of people are probably familiar with Paul Lamont.
Yes.
He was the city manager for quite a long time. I think he fell out of favor with some of the city council members at some point, and the current council was looking to replace him, and they had some false starts. They had some people they brought in or people they wanted to bring in, and it wasn't really working out. So a friend of mine who was on the council, actually a high school classmate, called me up. He knew I had a lot of experience working with municipal governments. Said, "Hey, would you like to be considered city manager?" I said, "Sure, I'll sit for an interview." And I sat with the interview and sat with the council directly, and we had 1 or 2 meetings, and they offered me the position in 2004, and I started later that year.
How long did you serve as city manager?
I was just about a little under 2 years.
A little under 2 years.
It was a point in my life where I'm glad I did it, and I think I helped stabilize the city again, because they're going through a lot of different city manager searches. But at the time I was only 39. I had 3 young kids, and it was a challenging work environment to maintain a work-life balance, and also the council meetings that were involved. So, I think I left it in a good spot, and the person who came in after me as the city manager lasted, I think, 4 or 5 years. So
nice.
It was great. It was a nice bridge.
And what do you think was one of your biggest accomplishments? 2 years is a long time in government. What was some of your
Sure.
Things that you're proud of that you accomplished?
Yeah, I think the one thing we did was when I came in, the city's bond rating was a little bit shaky, so we helped stabilize that right away. Highlighting the city's financial strengths. And also at the time, there was an episode where we had a boil water episode. People may not remember this, but there was about a 3-week period where the city residents couldn't drink the city water, and we had to work closely with the Department. We had to work closely with the Department of Health and our water utility systems here to make sure that we were all cleared to go there, and worked very closely with the Chamber of Commerce on that. We had daily updates for the press, and this was really before the advent of public social media, so we had to do it the old school way. But it was a really worthwhile experience to learn a lot about the city.
So after that, you went back into the private sector. You were involved in finance, right? And then I had the good fortune of having you on my transition team, and we were in need of a planning director at the time. I reached out to you. You said yes, and in 2019, I think it was, you started working with us. But we kind of, right from the get-go, we changed what that department was. It was not just planning, it was a Department of Planning and Economic Development because of your background in economic development. Tell us about your time with us.
Sure, yeah, so I joined in 2019, and it was, I think, September of 2019, and like you said, you wanted to elevate the emphasis on economic development, because I think we both shared the vision that a lot of the city's areas need some extra attention and a little boost to kind of get some things moving. So started in September 19, and then we developed a plan with the staff, and I had a great staff to work with, some long-term employees, had a great foundation to work with. And then in February of 2020, COVID comes around, so we had developed some plans to kind of identify areas that the city should emphasize, and then COVID obviously came. But COVID sort of actually acted as a catalyst for us to kind of implement a lot of programs we wanted to do. We sort of had like a 5-year window. So when COVID came, we said, no, we got to get this done now. We didn't have the luxury of waiting for time. So in a lot of ways, catalysts helped, COVID helped make a lot of projects move a lot quicker than we anticipated.
I mean, during your time, when you were in that position, we did get quite a bit done in a short period of time. A lot of it was working with the city council to change some of the overlay districts and to create overlay districts, which helped spur economic development. If you can explain that, and also talk about the formal arts district that we established.
Yeah, so like I said, COVID was a time where sort of some people just stood still and didn't know what to do. We took the opportunity to be bold and to be decisive and take some big swings. We weren't going to just wait for things to kind of shake out. So one of the first things we did was identify some of the central commercial districts in the city that were, had older buildings that were vacant. And the reason why they were vacant was because the allowed uses that were in those buildings were really no longer relevant to the city. So by creating more flexible zoning, allowing for mixed type of development, including residential and commercial together, allowing restaurant uses, minimizing the parking requirements. I think we brought a lot of these commercial districts to life. And if you go down Bullock's Point Avenue in Riverside now, it's a very different view. Obviously Warren Avenue with the Comedy Club and some of the other clubs down there. Waterman Avenue is now alive with a couple of venues there that really have sprung to life. And the thing people don't realize that all of those uses that are doing well now and having a good time, they were not allowed under the old zoning. So that was critical to change that.
When we think about some of the old, abandoned, underutilized properties that have now been converted to vibrant, new, full of businesses, full of residents. I mean, think about the Prince Horse building right next to City Hall. That was because of this ordinance that changed that. The Myrtle, I mean, that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this ordinance. So that was forward thinking on your part. You brought that to the team, and we were able to implement that. Let's talk about some of the other great things. I mean, public art has been big. I'm always in favor of investing in public art. Talk about some of the public art installations.
Yeah, so the emphasis we had coming out of COVID were 3 things: increase housing opportunities, employment opportunities, and the other one was arts. Being so close to Providence, we have a captive audience of people looking to display art and work on their art. So we created these arts districts right in Washamoket Square, and that's really been a great, again, another catalyst that you see public art displays in that area. It creates a sense of vibrancy, a sense of place that people come to. We've taken advantage of the fact that the bike path comes right through there, and that's really done a lot for not just Washamoket Square, but down by the bike path in Riverside as well. There's a public art display there that gets a lot of traffic in the summer, and it's done really well. So that sort of public art, gives people a sense of pride and enjoyment in the community.
It really does. And so with that arts district, by the way, Warren Avenue is in the arts district, and if somebody were to come in and open up a business, they would have real tax benefits with the art that they create and sell in the areas. So that's a good thing. Now, some of the other things that the city's worked on that really has revitalized or taken some former brownfields. I can think of a few of them, and you kind of had a role a couple of different ways, not only in your role as planning director, but also as your chairmanship with the East Providence Waterfront District Commission. So let's talk about Kettle Point. That was an oil tank farm.
Yeah.
And we went from a contaminated oil tank farm to a vibrant community. Tell us how that process
Yeah,
played out.
so that oil tank, for about 40, 50 years, there were 26 oil tanks on that property, and it was an active storage facility for oil and gas. And as a result, when the oil companies shut down that property back, I think in the mid-'80s, they had no intention to cleaning it up. They just were going to walk away from their environmental responsibility to maintain that property. So, but because of some changes at the federal level in the late 80s, early 90s at the EPA, they created an opportunity for companies to come forward and say, look, we would like to remediate our properties, work with local communities to bring these back to life. And again, the opportunity required some rezoning. Obviously, residential development was not allowed there when it was under the use of oil tank farm. So that project came and go. It had some starts and some non-starts. It had a couple of companies came after it and kind of dropped out of it. I remember meeting with people from British Petroleum. They came over and they weren't really motivated to work with the city at the time. They were just content to keep it fenced off and off the public access. So, but a local developer came in and took over ownership, and we worked closely with them to give them the tools to develop the property to now where it's a very vibrant community.
And that is an example of good policy coming forth, working with the private sector to get a project that was doing nothing for a community. It was an eyesore,
Right.
quite honestly, and contaminated into a vibrant community, but also having University Orthopedics there is incredible for our community. It means that people who need those services don't have to travel to Providence. They're right here in East Providence. Additionally, because of that relationship that you started with Churchill and Banks and Rich Vicari, and I saw what a great job they did there, and there was a project that you and I had been talking about. It was East Point, right? East Point is the former Ocean State Steel Mill, and that was under receivership for a long time. It was doing nothing for quite some time. And we were able to work with and reach out to Rich Vicari to see if he would be willing to do something there. Can you talk about that project?
Yeah, no, again, another piece of property that was sort of identified in the early 2000s as a cornerstone for the city's redevelopment efforts of the old waterfront. Again, the original developer kind of wasn't able to go through with it, so working with Richard Vicari and his team to take the same approach at Kettle Point, we used the same toolbox to get them up and running and move that. And not only we get the housing opportunities, the employment opportunities, but both Kettle Point and East Point have ample public access points. For the longest time, those properties were off limits to the public. But now, either at Kettle Point and soon to be at East Point, the public will be able to drive in, park their car, and walk along the Omega Pond and the Seekonk River. At Kettle Point, we have the wonderful pier there as well. So that's really been a big aspect of those projects, why they've been so successful.
And I think that's what makes that Waterfront District Commission special, is that it requires that there's public access to the water. It requires that once shuttered properties are now open to all of the people of not only East Providence, but Rhode Island as a way to enjoy our shorelines. Now, let's talk about one of the things that I know that you're very big on, and our administration is very big on, is increasing and making more affordable housing available to our residents and to new people who want to come and live in our city. We've got quite a few projects, and some of them started with you early on. Let's talk about Ivy Place. That's a great project.
Yeah, again, Ivy Place, right in the center of East Providence. The old theater was there. That building was knocked down many years ago, and the property just laid dormant, for a long, long time. So the city was working with a local affordable housing provider. They came in and built some very nice units. I believe they won an award for their architectural design for that units. I believe that the units have all been sold or in the process of being sold, but it fills a nice void in the city where you have affordable housing that's next to shops and coffee shops and the library and easy access to all the public amenities. So it's a really nice project that the city was 100% behind.
And also, for those people, you just spoke about East Point. East Point has an affordable housing component.
Exactly.
We're working with Aldersbridge communities, and I understand that they would just offer some of the funding they need to get this project underway. And it's going to be at the East Point development. It's going to be a 55 and older LGBTQ friendly community. So we're very excited about that. But there's other means of housing. There's other housing. Everything sometimes it can't always be affordable. Some of it has to be market rate. And market rate, if you have a good mix, it's good for your economy. And market rate will also help stabilize the market, because right now what we see here in East Providence is there's such a high demand for residential apartments and things of that nature that people can ask what they want.
Right.
And that drives up the cost. So some of the great projects that you've been involved with, the Newport Avenue apartments, that's 150 units.
Right.
That was a piece of property that was laying there dormant on Newport Avenue doing nothing for quite some time. The residence of Bull Point, that was a great one that you were involved with. Talk about that.
Yeah, it was, people probably remember it as an old car dealership, you know, back in the day, right at the end of the Parkway. Again, property went dormant. Nothing they were way behind on their taxes at the time. So I believe a developer out of Connecticut bought the property, came to the Waterfront Commission and said, look, what can I do here? What are the allowed uses? And we said, you know, residential multifamily is an allowed use there. And they thought that was a great idea. So they built 22 very attractive units. They also provided an off-site unit for affordable housing to satisfy their affordable housing requirement there as well, for a two-family homeowner occupied unit off of Purchase Street, actually, in East Providence. So it's a great project, and the developer there, I think he's done some other projects in the city. He's put in new sidewalks, and he's taken, like I said, an old eyesore and made it to an attractive you know, site that's close by to the local nightclubs and restaurants in that area.
And that's once again, there's been so much that's happened during your tenure that you were here, during our administration. We took a lot of these former dilapidated buildings and turned it into viable, productive properties. Let's see, I got a list. The Rumford Center Phase 1 and 2.
Right, yep.
Talk about that. That's a great project.
Yeah, again, it means so much to the, you know, Rumford area in terms of people going to get coffee there, having you know, dinner there at the restaurant. There's a fitness you know, facility there as well, and then the apartments are great. Again, another older industrial type building that if you didn't modify the zoning or give some more allowed uses, it wouldn't make economic sense for anyone to do anything with that property. But once you tap into the local development community and ask what they need, you know, they can certainly make really great things happen for the city.
Another major development project that's going on in the city right now is the Center City Apartments, which is a partnership with One Neighborhood Builders and some other nonprofits to bring in about 140 some odd affordable housing units. So we're very excited about that. Circle Drive, I remember this one. I remember this one specifically because that was an old building.
Yeah, I think it was like an old doctor's office. Yeah.
Right. And then what was interesting about that, what I've learned as a mayor, is sometimes the public's perception initially to any type of new development, they come across that they think it's going to ruin their quality of life. That's the impact I feel from people. And during the Circle Drive project, we had meetings with the members of the community, some of the residents nearby. They were very opposed to it. But what happened once it got built? What was your feedback?
Oh, that people loved it. Once they had the open house, people came in the neighborhood. They thought it was great. But yeah, they were very anxious about what was going to go there, what type of units were going to go there. And the ironic part is that the person behind that project was an East Providence resident who's a native. He's moved on. He lives somewhere in Massachusetts now. But because of that success, he's done 2 other projects in the city to really bring high quality, affordable you know, rental units to the community. And Waterman Avenue's done a couple of projects, and it's really been a nice addition to our community. And you mentioned, you know, there has to be a mix between market rate and affordable. It can't be all one or the other. It has to make economic sense. So if you have to have a blend of units to appeal to you know, the type of buyers that we're looking to attract.
And there's a real demand. People, I get people asking me all the time about wanting to move into the city. They can't find homes. One of the great projects that we did that included a blend of market rate and affordable single-family homes, and actually the affordable component was a 2-family home, was the Burnside Hoppin former school. That started under you and I.
Right. We
started that project back when you were here. And so we took a couple of old school buildings that were underutilized, we raised them, and then we started with making the lots available at an affordable price to get people in there. And it turns out that it's been a great success. Once again, a project that we heard a lot from residents and from neighbors about their concerns. The other day we had a ribbon cutting, and some of the neighbors came over and said, "This is absolutely beautiful. We love what you guys did."
Oh yeah, no, because you know, those school buildings were vacant for 15 years. You know, they were just sitting there doing nothing. So it made sense for us to put them back on the tax roll. And we listened to the neighbors. You know, there were some suggestions that we put apartments type units there, and it was clear the neighbors did not want to have an apartment unit right in the middle of a neighborhood. So we decided to make single-family housing lots, which is a nice addition to the housing stock in our city. We've had a lot of apartment units going up, but adding those single-family units, I think, really made a big difference, and that's why it's been so well received by the residents.
How long have you been on the Waterfront District Commission now? Is that
You know, when I was city manager, I was ex officio, and then when I was not city manager, I was appointed the full member in 2006.
Okay.
So it's going on 19 years. So.
Okay, 19 years. It takes time to
Right.
get these projects done. There's so much involved, especially when you're dealing with former industrial sites that have, environmental issues. Some of the great things we've already talked about: Kettle Point. We talked about East Point, which is within that district. You had some other ones, right? We're dealing with Live Nation now.
Yeah.
Who wants to come in
Right.
and open up a music venue
Right.
on their site? They're working that's moving along. There was also what was the project? It's a manufacturer that moved into East Providence and Rumford.
No, it was a couple. We had Aspen Aerogels was
Yes.
one there that's over by New Road, actually down by Dexter Road, but on New Road where the old Fram facility was, Fram had a huge complex in the city at one time. It had 3,000 employees there. A lot of those jobs got moved overseas, but we worked with Eaton Aeronautical, who had a building in Warwick that was getting flooded all the time. So finally, their parent company said, you have to get out of that facility. We can't take the interruption of service anymore. So that company was poised to move those jobs either to Connecticut or Ohio, but they were clearly going to leave the state of Rhode Island. But we worked very closely with Senator Reed's office to get a federal grant to help them relocate to that building. And now they have well over 200 employees that are dedicated to very high-end manufacturing jobs in the aeronautical space. So it's really been a great success for the city to keep that company there. And I know that a number of local residents who were going to lose their jobs because their jobs are going to be moved out of state. We're very happy to keep them here in East Providence.
And that's something that happened a while back. People may not be even aware of that.
Right.
I mean, the work with the Waterfront District Commission really has not only brought housing opportunities, but also work and manufacturing opportunities. And I think for a city like East Providence, any municipality, you want to have a good mix.
Right.
You want a mix of industry, you want a mix of small commercial, residential, apartments, single-family homes. You want it all, and that's what makes East Providence a wonderful place because of some of the work you've been doing. So with Live Nation, I can update the public and let them know that we have meetings with them on a regular basis. They are looking to build a concert venue. We are moving that project along, and they're moving that project along, so that's good news. The Metacomet Golf Course, I mean, that was a project that has gone through all its regulatory steps.
At the local level, yeah, they're complete with the Waterfront Commission and the Planning Department. So now they just have to go over some state permits that they're required to move ahead.
And part of the back and forth with the community was that we preserved the 9-hole public golf course that used to be purely a private entity. Now tell me real quick, as I'm told that we have about 5 minutes to go. See how quickly this goes? We have 5 minutes to go. And I want you to share with the public what you do as the executive director of the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
Yeah. So I work with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, which is really the state's primary hub to provide financial assistance to cities and towns to do, good old-fashioned infrastructure work, water pipes, sewer pipes, roads, bridges, things of that nature. Now we're doing resiliency projects. We've done a number of projects with East Providence, and East Providence has always used the Infrastructure Bank, but we take a lot of federal funds from the EPA, and we provide either grants or low interest loans to cities and towns to help them make really necessary improvements to their critical infrastructure.
But even in your role with the Infrastructure Bank, you helped our municipality support affordable housing. Explain how that, you guys were able to get us a grant to help the Center City apartments with some water issues. Tell us what
through the state legislature, they allocated $5 million through the new housing department and the Infrastructure Bank to work cooperatively to identify projects that needed some municipal upgrades to support affordable housing. So there were 5 communities that received grants, including the city of East Providence. And again, a lot of times people are a little hesitant about development because they say they can't afford the infrastructure upfront expenses. So these grants cover that expense and make the projects more viable.
So we have a great business, manufacturing business right here in East Providence called IGUS. And they're moving a lot of their manufacturing actually from Germany, and this started during the Biden administration. They were moving people over here to put the jobs here in East Providence. But they had an issue, and we approached you, and you were able to work with IGUS and our team, and you tell us about that.
Yeah, so I believe the Greenwood Avenue property, which was one of their first buildings in the city, had some serious drainage problems, and I think it was identified that some of the city's infrastructure was contributing to some of the drainage problems there. So again, through a competitive process, the city applied for a grant, and I believe work's being done right now to alleviate the drainage issue there at Greenwood Avenue. But you mentioned IGUS. They are really a nationally known manufacturer for the scope of work they do, the quality of work they do, and they're a great local employer. They have huge plans for continued expansion in Rumford, and I know that anyone who deals with IGUS has been very, very pleased with them.
Once again, another reason to be proud of what's going on here in the city of East Providence. Not only are we trying to create more housing, we're also keeping manufacturing jobs here and encouraging more to come in. You know, one of the things I deal with all the time, I get calls all the time from manufacturers wanting to find space, and I've been working closely with some of the people that own property along the waterfront to see if we can make that happen. One project that's near and dear to me is the Crescent Park Shoreline Protection Project. Many people will remember that the seawall was collapsed. We got that done. We got that taken care of, but there was phase 2.
Right.
We applied once again for a grant, and that was a pretty significant grant.
Yeah, it was $1.8 million from the bank to the city to help continue that stabilization project. So if you go down to the beach, where I know many people do, you'll see a lot of erosion on the shoreline. So I believe the city has a plan to work with a contractor or the Nature Conservancy to stabilize that shoreline, because that's critical, much like what's happening at Booth Avenue,
Yes.
which is another project that we help finance as well. You know, some people might question the impacts of climate issues and sea level rise, but it's right here in our own community. You know, you don't see bluffs disappearing just for no reason. It's obviously there's been change in some of the climate and some of the sea level rise that is contributing to that erosion on our shoreline.
And that phase 2 project, once again, is under permitting. We're going through the permitting process right now, and I believe the Nature Conservancy is also going to contribute some significant funds
Right.
for us to make this a more natural type of bluff.
Right.
It's not going to be a seawall like
Right.
the first phase,
Right.
but it's going to be incredible. Bill, I can't believe that our time is almost done. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
You know, I think, you know, you have done a great job. I was strongly supportive of the mayor form of government. You know, my brief period of time as city manager, I think it was evident, you know, even back then, in 2004 to 2006, the city just needed a different form of government. It needed something that was more responsive, somebody who was accountable to the people. So, you know, after I had left, there had been a number of other city managers that just didn't have long tenures. So I think, you know, you being the first full-time mayor have done a great job in the community, have created a lot of momentum, and sort of pointed us in a direction. I think that it'll pay dividends for the city for years to come.
I appreciate that, but I will share my secret. I like to surround myself with people smarter than me, and having you be part of that team initially when we first took office really transformed and enabled us to do a lot of things that really are impacting the city in a positive way. So that's it. I mean, I can't believe that the show is over. It went by really quick. I really enjoyed catching up with my good friend Bill Fazioli, and I hope that this information helps you understand some of the great things happening in East Providence. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Pulse of East Providence with Mayor Bob DaSilva. We'll see you out there. Stay safe. Stay well.